Hey everyone, Paler here, and welcome back. So today I have some brief impressions for you guys of the Destiny beta. This was the one that went on January 30th and 31st. It's actually been extended through February 2nd. I'm going to try and keep this very short, just tell you I liked, I didn't like, I liked, I didn't like, without overly describing it, mainly because there's a lot of footage out there covering it. If you want someone that's done a much longer video that I very much align with my opinions with, go watch the Cynical Brit Total Biscuit. It's kind of funny. I was gonna do this video this morning, and I saw his video go up, and when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, that's exactly what I was gonna say." What do I do now? But I needed something for the channel, and I did play it, so I figured I'd put this together anyway. So, my opinions coming off of it. First thing to clarify, I didn't get to play hardly any of the PvP. By the time I got my invite Sunday, the beta was already almost over. Most everyone had already been done playing it because there wasn't a huge amount of content. So when I made it to the PvP zone, I was by myself. I ran in, and literally I went through the door, and there was a group of about 8 guys camping the door, and they must have been in 2 groups, just mowing people down. I managed to get away from them once. Made it further in the city where I ran into like another group of 3 and got mowed down. At which point I got frustrated because I was just playing by myself and I quit trying the PvP. So I can't comment too much on that. The base game. What do I think? Well, I think it depends on your expectations. So I had the expectations going off their E3 coverage and what we've seen of a multiplayer-driven game, pseudo-MMO-esque. I thought it was going to be pseudo-Destiny. I say pseudo as in thought they were going to use like the raids and the weekly resets and things like that. Loot-driven, group-driven gameplay, but obviously with third-person shooter, not with first-person shooter. Another one would maybe be Warframe, you know, pseudo-MMO, not a full-blown MMO, pseudo-MMO, with crafting and reasons to come back week after week after week. What I played in the beta was nothing like that. The best way I can equate it is it's Mass Effect 3 crossed with Diablo 3 in a near future New York City that's gone through some type of plague. And I know that's some weird things. The combat very much reminded me of Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3. You're going to move into cover, you're going to hold down the right trigger, or right mouse button, the left trigger, to peek up over, aim at some enemies, shoot off a few rounds, duck back down, reload, peek up, shoot off a few more rounds. And then every so often you have abilities, 2 abilities, Q and E. You're going to throw out an ability on here or there, either heal yourself or maybe throw out a grenade or pull out a shield for yourself, and you're going to rinse and repeat. And the combat, yeah, it's a lot like that. If you enjoy Mass Effect combat, that cover-based shooter, you'll probably enjoy the combat in this. The abilities... Oh man, I can't remember if it's 12 or 15 abilities. There's 3 trees of abilities. So one's like a medical tree, one is like a destruction tree, and another one's like a tanky tree. And each tree had either 4 or 5 abilities in it for the beta, so 12 or 15 abilities. Now only 4 of these were available in the beta. And so you can take any one of, say, these, let's go with 12. I want to say there were 4 in each tree. So you can take any 2 of these 12 abilities and put them on your Q and E keys on keyboard and mouse, and then they would have different cooldowns. So like one of them was Pulse, and this would send out a pulse around you that would detect any enemies within about 30 yards and light them up on your screen so you could see them. Another one was a Riot Shield you could pull out. The Pulse would have like a 30-second cooldown, whereas the Riot Shield had like a 1.5-minute cooldown. And so you would use these quite a bit. Unlike Mass Effect, where the abilities were very much like the core of your gameplay, at least if you're playing like Adept or something, the abilities were more add-ons to the gameplay, in my opinion. Not in a bad way, like unneeded add-ons. But where Mass Effect, like you would be using your stuns and your grenades and your void abilities a lot, I didn't use mine all that much in Division. And maybe that made me a bad player, but like I didn't find, like, you're not going to throw down the healing ability unless you need healing. So that ability just sat there unused unless you got into an oh shit situation. And the grenade ability, you would only use that normally if there was like a group of 2 or 3 together or somebody stuck behind cover, and you normally didn't have that ability. It was much more effective just to peek up and shoot them in the head rather than try to use the grenade ability. So the abilities didn't have that greater use needed that Mass Effect did. I'm not sure if that's making sense. The abilities were modifiable, so when I said there's only 12 or 15, you could then do some small alterations to them. The only one I came across was with the Scan Pulse ability. After unlocking a certain part of the base you could build, you could then modify that out to have like a different added ability onto it. Not added ability, but added buff or debuff. So you could make it that, like in PvP, if you send out your Scan Pulse, it would cloak your fellow allies, anybody in your party. So if an enemy did a Scan Pulse, they wouldn't be able to see them. So it was like a modifier on top of that. Or you could send it out and it would increase any damage you would do to someone detected by your Scan Pulse by like 20% for 20 seconds or something like that. Little modifiers that you could put on to those abilities. The abilities I just wasn't very impressed with. They didn't feel game-changing like they do in Mass Effect. You know, Mass Effect, playing the Commando class, or whatever, the basic soldier class, compared to the Adept class, there was a notable difference in those two classes. In this, I didn't really get that feel. The abilities were just little additions rather than priority abilities to be used. The one story mission that was in the game was fairly well done, if kind of predictable. It had you going into Madison Square Garden. I'm not going to show any footage of this because if you've watched any video, they've shown footage of this. But you go into Madison Square Garden, you start off down at the bottom of an escalators, you kill through there, you move up to where the basketball court normally would be, you kill through there, you move up to a restaurant above the court, and then you move up to the roof where there's a final boss, and you're rescuing a hostage in there. Very predictable. It was decently well done. It was enjoyable. The voice acting leading into it was pretty good. The story for why you were going in there made sense. It was understandable. Yeah, no real complaints. It was good. So that was the story. New York City itself was actually kind of impressive. I will say this. So there's been a lot of talk about the graphics of The Division. When they first revealed it, it was something impressive to see in those E3 trailers, and they've definitely scaled the graphics back down a bit. So I'm not going to talk so much about the textures of the individual items, but what impressed me most with the game was the clutter in the world. If you go to like Fallout 4 and look, the way they try to make the ground look cluttered and apocalyptic is they have like this one UGG texture, is what I'm gonna call it, ugh. And it's like dirt and paper and maybe a soda can just all mixed together in one flat texture. And it works relatively enough. You know, when you're at a distance from it, it doesn't look too bad. Once you get up close, it's like, wow, that's really bad. The Division, on the other hand, has a lot of real, actual clutter. You walk up to a computer desk and there's can with pencils on it and pens and keyboard, mouse, soda cans. The floor's covered with styrofoam containers and soda cans, all kinds of stuff. And it's not one flat texture. It's an actual item that is being rendered. This does make the system performance, it's a computer beater. But the amount of detail that's gone into making the New York City feel like a New York City that's gone to hell, I was pretty much impressed with that. I liked it quite a bit. The loot system was acceptable. Going from a green loot to blue loot was fine, but I do think this shows the biggest thing. So earlier, I think I said it earlier, that might have been my previous recording of this video. I equate the game to basically two things: Mass Effect, Diablo. So the combat is Mass Effect. The loot and the grouping is Diablo. So the game, to me, at least the single player or the story-driven part of the game, feels like it was built around single player. And this is perfectly fine. It's just not what I expected. So you go in and basically everything seemed to have been done for you as Diablo was. You can play through the entire story by yourself, but if you invite in another player, all it does is it ups the strengths of the enemy. Rather than the enemy having 500 hit points, they now probably have like 1,200, a little more than double. Rather than the enemy doing 300 damage per shot to you, they now do 600 damage per shot to you. So it just kind of scales everything based on the player numbers. It doesn't seem to have been built from the ground up as multiplayer driven. This is perfectly fine. It really is. You know, that's good in many ways. It means people that don't have someone to play with, or in a year from now when there's fewer people playing, you can still go in and fully experience the campaign. You can wait for it to be on sale for $10 and get that full campaign experience. This is all good. It just wasn't what I expected from it. I expected something more along the line of Destiny, as I said before. So you got that, and then you have the loot system. And this is where I'm going to really agree with what Total Biscuit said, and this was my biggest takeaway from it. The game setting doesn't seem to match the game elements. So you have a game where you want to have a lot of unique enemies, you want to have a lot of unique encounters, and you want to have a lot of unique loot. That's how you keep people playing these loot grinds. In order to get someone to continue into that, you look at Diablo. You need a lot of unique bosses and encounters and things you can go to, but you also need a lot of unique swords and shields and staves and bows with crazy abilities on them to get people to keep coming back and keep playing. How much can you do with an AK-47? How much can you do with an LMG, an M249? Can we put poison onto a bullet? Can we make it cause explosive damage, right? Each round from the machine gun causes an explosion. I don't think they're going to go that way. And as such, you know, how much different is an AK-47 going to be like a green AK compared to a blue Scar H compared to a purple M16? Is it just going to be a static number increase, or is there going to be something more interesting to it? Some people, that static number increase is going to be perfectly enough for them to get away with. For me, that really doesn't do it. The best thing I could say is what I played. When I was playing this game, I kept saying to myself, man, if instead of being a Division agent, because that's what you are, you're an agent of the Division, what if you were an XCOM agent? What if this was the world of XCOM, especially XCOM 2 coming out? Maybe that's why I was thinking about it. It's coming out on Friday. Where, yes, you have the humans, you have the gangs fighting over the city that you have to fight, but what if there was also alien technology? You could get plasma rifles and laser rifles and maybe a lightning gun, poison bolts, you could get explosive rounds, you could get mechanical armor suits, augments, all this stuff. It would just really increase the amount of variety they could add to the gameplay just because of that setting. But since it's this pseudo near future New York setting, they're highly limited. That setting, that XCOM setting, would also add in so much enemy variety. You wouldn't just have guy with gun, guy with baseball bat, guy with shotgun. You could have stealth alien. You could have aliens that use like vortexes to move around. You could have massive, you know, bulking aliens that are tanks and stuff. They could really have done something more. This setting just, I think, fails this type of gameplay. All of that said, I think it's still probably going to be a decent game. It's just not going to be the game I was expecting or hoping for. When I came away from it, my expectations now are going to be a game that's going to have a 12 to 16 hour campaign, probably 15 missions, give or take, that are reasonably well done. They're going to set you up, and then another, you know, 20 hours worth of side quests that you could do. If you want to max out your base, you can go save this civilian over there, but it's not a mission, just a little side quest you could do. And that's going to give you, you know, say 25 hours of gameplay, plus then whatever else you can do with the PvP. But I don't think there's going to be enough loot to drive the game long term. And I don't think there's going to be enough enemy variety to drive a game that I'm going to invest 60 plus hours into. I just don't think it's there. Perhaps future DLC, maybe Ubisoft will come in and they'll do an alien invasion or something, but they haven't said anything about DLC, which concerns me. Also, perhaps there's raids. Perhaps there is group-built content that's only playable with a group, right? Like with weird encounters where one person needs to be covering a doorway while another person needs to be doing something over here, another person needs to be hacking a computer over there, that have to be done with a coordinated group. That could maybe survive. You know, if there was dungeons or raids or something that must be done with a group, that could maybe help. But from what we saw in the beta, I don't know if any of that exists, and that has me hesitant. I can easily say with this one, considering the pre-order bonuses are nothing amazing, I would say wait for reviews to come in. I would give it 90 days post-launch, because that's going to be when we start to really find out if there's any major problems with it, if it's lacking content. That's when we'll find out. And from what I played, you're not going to miss out on anything by waiting those 90 days. You're still going to be able to go in and play and complete it by yourself without any major problems. Yeah, so that was my takeaway from this. If you want a much longer video, go watch Total Biscuits, because I mostly agreed with everything he said. Until next time, this has been Paler. Thanks for watching.